Forward to Mike. Okay, very nice, very nice. Start Ben again. Let's get cranked up. This is going to be a super cool training. I am going to try my best to keep this at 30 minutes. We do have a lot of things to work our way through. We're going to let it rip with the no nonsense leadership, the 5 tough love strategies for leading at a higher level. One of the things that we are seeing, particularly in the healthcare space, and really, truly, it's everywhere after COVID, is we have this scene where the employees, we're just really struggling with personnel. We're struggling with having people come in that can be trained and are motivated and are ready to do their jobs, that don't have entitlement. The entitlement thing that's going on in this country, it always trickles down. It trickles down from the government to the society, and then it works its way into small businesses. And it's kind of painful to watch, when I go into these clinics and I look at the staff almost to a man every time I go into a clinic. It's the same thing that we have to deal with, which is, holy cow, we've got some tyrants, or we have some people that are very, very lazy and lethargic. And what we want to do today is just, we're going to do a bunch of trainings over the next couple of months on leadership. But this is going to be a start, because what I want to do on my trainings is really hammer home the fact that, number one, we want to make sure that you understand that it's you drive the bus. You're responsible for everything that happens in your business. And the better that you are, the better personnel you're going to attract into your life, and not just in your business, but any of the dynamics you have. But it's super critical to think about that. Is the better I am, the better the people are going to be that I attract. And also, as you raise the bar for yourself and you hold yourself more accountable, you're going to have an easier time holding other people accountable, and also not letting them dictate the scene based upon entitlements, because that's number two. Number two is, we're not going to build entitlements. And I really want to focus on that mentality of, let's get you better as an employer and as a boss, and as someone that's going to be a more effective leader. That's what we call leadership. And then let's make sure that you consistently focus on the entitlement scene that we're in this environment, because particularly after COVID, it's pretty significant. I mean, it is a challenge, but that doesn't mean there's bad people out there. There's tons of really great, wonderful, amazing people out there that you can work with. You just got to find them. And so we're going to work through a couple of things here. Let's get started. You guys have your worksheets ready to go. That you can download. So let's go ahead and get started on number one. There's 5 different steps that we're going to go here. And it starts with discard spin for truth, right? Like, let's stop the spin and then let's just tell the truth. And, one of the things, this is something that I remember myself doing for sure. I got better at it over time, and it's definitely something that I see is small business owners will interview a potential employee, and then they'll spin it. They'll like start making promises, and they'll start trying to sell their business. They'll start trying to sell the position like they need that employee way more than that employee needs them. And I can tell you, I did it myself when I first got going, and I definitely see it now. So it's super interesting, right? But if you think about that, it's like, why do we do that? Why do you have to sell this position? It starts right there with the truth. You gotta think about it in those terms. And as far as like their work goes, their work ethic and their job performance, you can hurt their feelings, but not their future. Which means if you let them consistently do this piss poor behavior, they'll get so used to it and so entitled to it that when they move on to another job, they'll do the same thing and they'll get fired, right? Like, we got to make sure it's one thing to hurt their feelings. You have to get super real with them and super honest. But if you confront it correctly and with a stern manner, and you're trying to promote better behavior, usually people will listen. Usually they'll improve. But if you never do that confrontational side of it and confront what's going on with their actions and with their performance, they're never going to improve, right? Joe, do you have any examples of that? Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry. Let me get you unmuted.
There we go.
Yeah.
Quite a few examples, but from a practical standpoint, I don't have the downloaded sheet. I don't never received the link to that. But probably not the right person to ask at this particular second. I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I think the big takeaway is it's that their behaviors and their actions are not going to get better. If you have someone that's entitled, or if you have someone that's that's not producing, or they are creating drama, they're too much gossip, whatever, their behaviors never get better, right? They only get worse. And so you have to have a high tone level to tell the truth, a high confront level, and you just gotta you don't want to hammer them and call them names and yell at them and things like that. That's never going to work. That's never a good idea. But again, if you
Well,
don't confront it, it's going to get worse.
what I found in any time you have a situation where somebody is off track, the worst thing that I've done is to point that out to them, because that only creates animosity. Uh, However, if you show them a better way and then make it a constructive conversation, then it always works out better, because then they start to view you more as a mentor than as the person who keeps putting them down, because that's the way they interpret it.
Yeah. Well, they definitely need to know where you stand. You need to be super consistent with your leadership.
Mm-hmm.
If you hold their feet to the fire and you hold yourself accountable and then you hold them accountable, then they get used to it. And so if they know that things aren't going right, a lot of times they'll course correct on their own, and a lot of times they won't. But when you do confront them, it's usually not that bad. Now, the longer you wait, there's actually a book out called Crucial Conversations, and it goes into detail about the longer you wait to handle something and don't have that conversation with a human being, the bigger the problem. Like the resentment start to build up, the anger, the fear. So the quicker you can have a really crucial conversation, I highly recommend that book. The better off you're going to be. They've got to know where you stand. I mean, that's super, super important. And same goes true for the really good employees. When you have great employees, tell them that they're great. Look, we're not giving out participation trophies. This ain't the fifth grade, and not everybody's going to win. There's winners and there's losers in this game. That's how this works. That's how small business works in this country. It still works that way, as hard as it is to believe. No participation trophies. We're going to take severe ownership of ourselves, and we're going to make sure we hold our staff that way as well. Make sense, George? You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it makes sense. I agree with what Joe said, just that, as soon as I criticize somebody, I basically lose all credibility with them. So even if they did something just so obviously wrong, it just never does any good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's being hypercritical. If you have to be critical of someone, you should have given them 4 or 5 positive reinforcement type of phrases or encounters before you ever have to criticize them. We always want to be way on the positive side of the ledger with our communication. And if you have to consistently criticize, that means that person's the wrong person. I mean, if that's the case, that it's not, you shouldn't have to do that, and that's another thing about this telling the truth is a lot of times we have this mentality, and it blows my mind. I hear this almost daily with the clients that I have, which is, well, this employee sucks, but there's nobody else out there. I can't find anybody. Um, and that's just piss poor, woeful thinking. That's not even close to reality. But again,
It's laziness.
Yeah, it's straight lazy. I mean, that's all that is, dude. Is stop being lazy. Um, you know, it's just total bullcrap to say that there's no talent out there. There's a ton of talent out there. They're all, a lot of them are looking for jobs because a lot of them are working for people that they're not very happy with. They're working for people that are not effective leaders, that don't have a really good culture, that has not built a loving, caring, solid environment, a good workplace. And so it's really critical that you get that out of your mind and say, well, there's no good people out there anymore. That's just not true. All right. Okay. Number two, replace entitlements with qualifiers, right? And this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, which is you can't just give things away for free. If you're going to give away free lunches, well, at least make there be a qualifier. Let's hit a goal. If it's a medical clinic, let's hit $50,000 in collections this week, and then we'll give you some good free lunches. It's yeah, hey, by the way, you guys ever have people around you that like you do something like you give them a free lunch and you buy them pizza and they complain about the pizza? You ever, I mean, do you have people like that in your life, or have you seen people like that? I know I have.
I got a few people.
Yeah.
Well, if you truly want to motivate your staff, you pick the person who's most valuable to you and producing the best return on investment for you. And when you order the pizza, you order the pizza for your staff, and then you send out to Ruth's Chris for a steak dinner for that one employee, and they're all looking at him eating the steak while they're eating the pizza, and it speaks for itself. They'll get the message.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's actually, I would get that message. I would definitely get that message. No doubt about it. But yeah, and that's the thing. We want to reward performance. We're going to get into more of that here in a few minutes about not neglecting your great employees because they're the ones who drive the business. Bad employees, they have this real funny thing that they do. If you really pay attention, they hide behind the good employees. Really bad employees do two things that are very covert in the way in which they do it. Number one, particularly office managers in medical settings, they will either hide and blame the rest of their staff for their woeful performance, or they will create problems that only they can solve. And usually the owner is so busy working inside of their business that they don't realize it. They can't get up out of their business and see it. Believe me, I've seen it, numerous times. And that's one of the things that we have to focus on too when we sign up a new client is, okay, what's the staff doing? Where are we at? Do we have a office manager Nazi, or do we have someone that's a good, effective leader? And you'd be really surprised at how they go about it because it's super covert. It's not that easy to see. But you want to make people qualify for bonuses. Make sure you communicate that. Make sure they understand bonuses are not going to be handed to them. Like I said, no participation trophies. And like Joe said, it's super simple. One of the things that we see in culture nowadays is somebody leaves and there's going to be a promotion or it's time to step up into a new role. Some of the entitled employees will think, well, I've been here for 25 years, so I'm going to be the one that gets the promotion. And that ain't how it works. Like in this game, whoever the person that gets promoted, they get promoted because they deserve it. They've earned it, period. It doesn't matter if they've been there 6 months. If they've been there 6 months and they're better than the 25-year veteran, well, that's just too bad for that 25-year veteran. You had 25 years to get it right, and clearly you ain't. So you got to go. Either you're going to stay in your crap job or you're going to have to leave. I mean, that's just how it works. And whenever you start to see that in an organization and you start to push that mentality on them, a lot of employees, the good ones, they'll like it. They'll understand competition is important. And it's not that you're competing against other people. You want them to compete for themselves, to be better versions of themselves.
The other thing that has happened that I've noticed is some companies think they're rewarding their employees when they're actually doing the exact opposite. I'll give you a classic example. My wife used to work for Hilton Grand Vacations, and she won Employee of the Month. So her prize was a movie ticket to AMC. So she came home and told me that and said, "Oh, not a problem. I'll drive you. I'll sit in the parking lot. Yeah, and you can tell me about the movie when it's over." They gave her a single ticket. Okay, so you've got to be very careful on the messaging your prize or rewards sends. Yeah, Hilton Gratifications. One movie ticket for Employee of the Month.
Yeah, and I don't think that they're really well known either. They're not the Ritz-Carlton of the world. I don't think they're well known for, don't get me wrong, Hilton's Hilton, but there's a lot of truth to that.
Mhm.
There's a lot of doctors in the medical space that have clinics that generate a very large amount of revenue, and they are super self-centered, and they are super uh, the money does something to them, and they have a hard time understanding that they need to reward people with bonus time off or gift cards, or to them $100 is nothing, but they still don't want to give it up to give as a bonus to their employee who's doing so well. And that's really sad. It's something that we want to make sure we come up with a really, really good bonus structure based on production. And we're going to work through some stats here real soon. In the next week or two, we're going to do a big stat and a big production based seminar, just like this one, where we'll start to piece some of that together. But it's really important that you have bonuses for the staff. And let's work our way through number 3, which is stop rewarding mediocrity. And this is one of the big ones. One of the worst things any human being ever does is they set a goal that's not high enough or not big enough, and they actually hit it. I did that myself in my clinic. We were doing about $2.5 million a year in this one office. And for me, knowing that almost no one else in my field was doing that, it kind of felt like, man, I'm doing great. I'm making really good money and I'm doing awesome. And this is cool. And the truth of the matter is $2.5 million, there's an awful, awful lot of people out there that would look at $2.5 million in top line revenue and they would say, man, I do that in a week. I do that in a month. That's nothing. That's just numbers on a piece of paper. That's a very, very small business. And the truth is it was a small business. Because I set a goal way too low and I actually hit it. Joe, you ever done something like that?
Well, you always end up setting any goal that you hit, you obviously set too low. If it's a real goal, ideally you want to fall just short of that. I know that sounds very counterintuitive, but when you think about it, if you set a goal and you consistently hit your goals, then your goals aren't high enough.
Yeah.
I know it's a little counterintuitive, but
Well, you want to have goalposts. You want to have guide markers on your road to success or on your roadmap to selling off the practice. Um,
mhm,
and it is important, but that's why we track weekly goals to make sure we're on pace and on track to grow. However,
benchmarks.
yeah, right. But here's the thing: the definition of mediocre, average, ordinary, or not outstanding. Um, and the reason why, here's the thing, and I think you both will agree. There's so much mediocre crap going on in America right now that we've just grown used to it, right? Like no matter where you go now, you pretty much, if you get anything above piss poor service, you're happy. And if you get good service or great service, then you're just like floored and wowed at this point. I mean, anywhere you go. Joe, were you about to say
The
something?
big thing, yeah, the big thing, uh, mediocre is actually a very good thing. And here's why. It is a golden opportunity for anyone who chooses to be better than mediocre. Okay, mediocre basically is your competition wiping itself out.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, if everybody was above average, then it would be much tougher to get ahead.
Yeah.
So, from my perspective, mediocre is good. Mediocre is an opportunity for all those who strive not to be.
Yeah, that's a great, great example. There's a clinic that I work with. that they've tripled their business in the last 2 months, and just by fixing some systems, some basics. And they're just now getting up to around 75 grand a month, which is still not good by any means. However, they're growing fairly quickly. That clinic right now is average. Before, it was just woeful. It was just a very low producing uh, place. However, what you just said, Joe, so accurate, because if they ran that business here in Charleston, they'd have been bankrupt a long time ago. They wouldn't be collecting, they wouldn't have been collecting 25 grand when I came on board. They'd have been collecting about five, because they weren't doing anything right. And there's 15 legitimate ballers here that know what they're doing, and they're not average. They are dropping massive amounts of marketing. They're everywhere. Their messages everywhere, and this very mediocre clinic wouldn't have survived here. I mean, you're right. There is a survival of the fittest, and then here's the crazy part about it, though. In this town that they are in, granted, it's a smaller town. However, their competition is even worse than they are. And everybody around there is just used to bad, mediocre medical service. I mean, it just is what it is. But here's a question for you: how many people are average around you that you just kind of learn to live with? Like, do you have any people around you that are just average?
Sadly, average and below average is the norm. So when I typically reach out, I already know prior to doing anything where the weak spots are going to be, because so many businesses make the exact same mistakes that even without researching a business, I can tell you at least 4 or 5 things that they're doing wrong, and that are so obvious and literally cost nothing to fix that it boggles the mind. Okay, and I'm talking about simple things that can literally mean 4, 5, 6 extra patients per month without them doing any additional marketing or advertising or anything else.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I agree with you. You've showed it to me. Like, it blows my mind, the simplicity of what you do. And you look at it like,
Well, my wife will tell you I'm a simple guy.
uh, you're a long ways from simple. What about you, George? You got some average people in your life? Now, I do know some of the people around you are super high level, for sure.
I was laughing. I was just thinking about when I told you, kind of back to your previous point, when I told you that this is a training call last year, but I was like, yeah, when I ran that 52-mile race, I kind of like half-assed the training plan, and I like didn't do all the training, but I still finished it. And you're like, oh yeah, that just means you didn't set your goal high enough. And I was like, I was like, it was like a slap in the face, because I was like, well, I ran 52 miles, and it just cracked me up, because I was like, oh yeah, I was like, I guess you're right. And I think it's funny too, because sometimes like it'd be the flip side, and I'll think like I'm not doing, like, to me, I didn't do a good enough job, but then somebody is like, oh yeah, that's great. And I'm just like, it's funny to see like the differences sometimes where especially when you're trying to do the best you can, where a lot of people who are trying to put forth their best effort and are really trying to succeed, they think they're not doing enough, when everybody else is like, oh wow, like you went above and beyond.
Yeah. So that's all perspective. It's a perspective of where you're at, and I think that, again, what you did with that 52-mile race is great. It's just, there's this mentality of there's always a bigger gorilla in the jungle. And there's always, the truth is, the only competition you ever really have is yourself. How are you holding yourself accountable? Because, the thing is, either you get better yourself, and then which helps you get them better, and you attract better, or you get the people better that are already with you. I mean, that's how you have to, you got to lead by example in either one of those environments, right? So here's to kind of finish off number 3. You get what you incentivize, so stop incentivizing nonsense. Otherwise, you plug non-performers into life support so that they stay around longer and continue to debilitate your enterprise. You know, the longer you let them be mediocre, the longer you're going to get mediocre. You know, you're going to get mediocre until you're done dealing, until you stop it. Okay. Do you guys have any questions before we hit number 4?
I'm good.
I'm good too.
All right. Number 4, give your best to the best and less to the rest, right? And so what I mean by that is, you know, it's funny when you think about this in terms of, like what I was saying earlier, how I've heard a lot of people that sell them, they kind of sell their clinic and kind of sell the job. You know, they get desperate and they're just trying to plug a warm body into the role. And it's the super interesting thing where politicians. You ever notice? I never really paid attention to this until I heard it myself. And it's politicians they never reward the best, right? Because if they did, they would never get voted into office. They have to sell to the lower level people of the world. They have to give, at this point in America, if you listen to the politicians, they have to give stuff away for free. Well, the winners in this world, in this country, they don't want that. We're the ones paying for it. So we don't want that. So you know, it's super, super interesting. But the point is, when you have someone, don't waste your time giving away participation trophies and having to handle the drama from all the lower level employees when you have wonderful, amazing people that are helping you grow your business. Make sure you reward them and make sure you verbalize to them how important they are and keep promoting them, because it's super, super important that they stay with you. Because if you don't and they leave, you got a much bigger problem on your hands. You know, fairness doesn't mean sameness. Fairness means justice. Justice means you get what you deserve. I mean, that's the basic law of karma. Karma isn't what people think it is. Like you do something bad happens to you. Karma is the seeds that you plant inside of yourself, that if you plant them, if you're average and you cut corners and you cheat and you lie and you steal and you don't do your best and you gossip and you bring other people down, well, you're going to get that back. That's what you're going to attract back into your life. Sooner or later, you're going to pay a price for creating those negative seeds inside of you, right? And there's this real. Go ahead.
Just as an observation on what you just said, you get what you deserve, and luck are two of the exact same thing. Okay, and what do I mean by that? If you look at everybody you know, the luckiest people you know, if you went and looked at them closely, you would see that they work harder than everybody else. Okay, karma is another way of saying laziness. Luck is another way of saying great work ethic. So both karma and luck totally controlled by the individual, not by the universe. Well, a little bit by the universe, but you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question. There is no question that when you really take a look at someone, that it looks as if they got lucky. The real luck only happens probably like 1 to 2% of the time that you see it. The other 97, 98% of the time, that person had done an incredible amount of wonderful, positive things over a course of very long periods of time and built up an environment where it was time for something like a seed to sprout inside of them. It was time for that seed that had been growing to bloom. And it looks like luck, but it's not. It's hard work, it's preparation, it's getting focused, it's learning, it's doing the next right thing to everybody around you, it's helping other people. What happens is when you really, really want something, if you go give it to other people first, then you'll get it back, but it won't look quite the same. And so sometimes when that positive karma comes back on you, it looks like luck, but it's not. It's a lot of hard work behind it. So yeah, that's a very good point. Very, very good point. But again, in this environment, we're not here to, I mean, you do get what you deserve, but the biggest thing is we're not going to reward bad behaviors. That's not what we're here for. And then here's the thing from Vince Lombardi. His quote says, "There's nothing more unequal than the equal treatment of unequals," right? Like you want to really piss off your good employees, treat the bad employees with the exact same manner as the good ones. Like give them the same bonuses, give them the same perks, give them the same pep talks, treat them exactly the same. Don't correct their bad behaviors, don't correct their bad attitudes, and don't correct their entitlements. Those good employees are going to struggle. They're going to struggle with that for a while. You're going to have problems with those really good employees. They're going to leave for a better culture. So do not create that culture inside of your business, no matter what you do. All right. Let's go to the final one. We're at 30 minutes. So I'm trying my best to get this thing knocked out, but we have one more. And this is, again, getting super consistent. Be fair every time, right? I want you to be firm and accountable. You've got to get respect. You've got to have respect for that person. But I want you to be firm and fair with all of your employees. Because if you're not, and they don't know what to expect, and you're not consistent, they're always going to be on eggshells. They're always going to be worried if they're doing something wrong. They're always going to be afraid. And we talked about this last week. They're going to be afraid to come to you and talk to you about things. You have to cultivate an environment in a place where the employees feel good that they can call you on your inventory, and they can call you on your bull crap, and they can be open with you and feel like they're going to be heard. Don't let your ego get in the way with that. And then I've got a couple of things here that I want to bring up. Obviously we've talked about not dumbing down our standards, but what I want to do is I want to add in 2 interview questions that I think would be really great. And we're actually going to do an interview. Next week's leadership call is going to be more on the interview process. Interview question number 1, Joe, I think you'll like this because I know you're a big NLP guy. You look at him and you say, what if I were to tell you, or how would you feel if I told you that this interview wasn't going very well? Now, why would we do that? Even if it's going great. Now, quite frankly, the only time you would want to use that interview question if it's actually going fairly decent, going well. If it's going really, really bad, you say that and they're terrible people, this isn't going to work. You might as well just stop wasting time and just say, hey, shake your hand and good luck. Have a wonderful, amazing life. But let's say the interview is actually going well. So why would you think that would be a good idea, George, to ask that question?
I mean, it would definitely gauge their reaction to see how they respond to it, and kind of their confidence in themselves on how they felt the interview went, and not changing.
So what you're looking for, perfect. So what you're looking for, that's right. You're looking for 2 things. Number 1, the correct way to respond to that would be, oh man, really? That's kind of interesting. I'm just curious, why would you think that? Like, what is it about this interview that's not going well? It seems like it's going well to me, and obviously I want to be better. So what do you feel like's not right? Like if somebody said that to me and I'm being interviewed, that's what I would say. However, what the other thing is what if they start making excuses? Well, I know I feel kind of the same way. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I'm kind of worried about the pay, and they start making excuses. Like, remember, we ain't taking excuses in this game. We're not. That's not how it works. But are they thick-skinned? Can they take it? So Joe, you're smiling and you're laughing. So what are you thinking?
I'm smart. You know me well enough, and I think George does as well, to know that the way my mind works isn't typically the way everybody else's mind works. My response would have been totally different. If the interviewer said that to me, I would say, no, you're doing a great job. I think this is going great. And shut up.
Yeah.
You have to remember, every communication is a chess game.
Yeah.
Okay. Either they control the board or you control the board. At that point, they're now in a very weird situation after me saying that.
Yeah.
Oh no, and it will take them. it's like if somebody asks you an awkward question and you don't feel like answering it, if you excuse yourself, turn your head and sneeze, half the time they're going to forget about the question and go on to the next one. Okay, everything is a chess game. You're trying to get them to ask specific things and take specific actions. They're trying to get you to reveal yourself. And if you view it as a chess game, you find your conversations are a lot more fun. And again, you said it best. I'm very much into neurolinguistics. Okay. So very different reaction than 99% of the people would have to that question.
Yeah, it's a great question. The reason why I'm bringing this up at the end is because this is going to be our lead into next week's training on leadership. We're going to be focusing on some interview stuff. So, and I never asked that question. I mean, I should have, but I didn't. And but it's a really great question to ask, and it's right. And you ask that question like right in the middle of the interview, like as things are going through, as you're going through the questions. You kind of catch them off guard, so you kind of get to see how they handle being on their feet. Do they have thick skin or not? And then the other question you can ask is, "Hey, so," and let's just kind of role play this out. George, what's a major accomplishment at your old job? Like, what's a goal that you hit? What's something that you got done there that you felt really confident with, and you hit that goal, and it was a big milestone for you.
At the old job, um, I think I was promoted early to senior associate, and then did a busy season before leaving. So was able to get the experience of running full-time audits and being in charge of all the project management and day to day and getting it done.
Was there any
Um,
kind of like, I mean, was there any goals or any targets or anything that you actually hit?
just get the audit done.
Yeah, I got you.
That's how it works over there.
Well, what stopped you from doing it even faster?
Um, it's always a resource thing. Just I mean, one, I'd started off as a senior, so it was my first year. I was inexperienced, and my project management skills probably could have been a lot better. But it always comes down to resourcing how uh, trained and proficient the staff is, and also managing the client well. So getting everything we need and having a good relationship with them, and not, if you have a bad relationship with your client going into an audit, it's a complete mess.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So here's what I did. So the question is, what stopped you from doing it faster? And you halfway answered it correctly. So if I was legitimately interviewing you, I would have said, okay, I can live with that, because what you typically are going to hear whenever you hear that, like if you say, well, and they tell you, oh man, we had this target, we sold 27 cars last month, or I brought in an extra $65,000 for revenue at the clinic. Then you ask them that question, well, what made you not do it? How come if you only did 65, what kept you from doing 95? If they make excuses and they start to blame other people or they start to blame other things, well, then there's a challenge there, right? Now, you did say, well, I was new, I was just learning. And there's some truth to that. Like, we can live with that. I mean, I can live with that. But however, if if they start to blame other people and deflect and they don't take ownership for that, then you got to be real mindful of that employee, like potential employee. Like right now, we're just talking about a couple of super quick questions to ask to start to weed out the entitled employees, right? Joe, and you're smiling again, so I'm assuming you got something to add.
Uh, George, just in listening to your answer, the problem I had with your answer from a neurolinguistic standpoint, your answer was about you.
Yeah.
The person who's interviewing you could care less about you. They're interested in what's in it for them. So in answering the question, and again, I don't know what you do, so forgive me if there's any inaccuracies in this, but uh, you know, what you get into when you do an audit, okay, is not just getting through the audit so you can maximize your production, But what makes you what gives you a high is knowing that you saved the client every single penny. Why? Because that makes me look good and it makes the company look good. Okay. And so I turn it into a game. My job is not to do an audit for the client. My job is to find every bit of savings for that client I can, because we all benefit when that happens. Don't you agree? And if they respond to "don't you agree," what you've effectively done there is turn the interview process around, because now they're agreeing to what you said, and it's less of a confrontational thing and more of a conversational thing,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's definitely some, that's just getting agreements is super important no matter what you're doing. And, getting agreements in any kind of two-way flow is really, really, really important. The point of that question though, for sure is, and like what Joe said, are they deflecting blame to other people, or are they taking severe ownership of that? Because if I'd have been told that question, I'd been like, dang, I mean, I might have blamed other people. I don't know. There might be some legitimate, reasons why we couldn't hit that target. Maybe whatever, the marketing wasn't right, or whatever the case may be. But the big thing is going to be taking ownership of the scene. So, okay, so we are done with the training. Just super quick, do you guys have anything that you would like to add to this training? Because we went a little bit long. I don't think I'm going to be able to do these in 30 minutes. I just think they're going to be 45-minute trainings. So we're going to wrap up, but did you guys want to add anything? I really appreciate the input.
And not an issue. What is are we over with the training portion?
Yeah, I don't know how to stop the recording, but yeah, we're done. We can
Oh
keep.
no, you can keep recording. You can. Here's the thing: on all of these recordings, okay, what you're going to do is you're downloading the